Hi everyone, this is Heather. I'm sorry I've been a little bit quiet this week, but I have been working extensively on the Flourish Academy, and it is exciting and fun and very overwhelming. That's what I've been doing. I've been laser lock focused, which is good, but there are a lot of questions that have been asked recently that I haven't had a chance to respond to. A lot of you have, and I'm so grateful. That's the point of community, that everybody chimes in where they can help. So I'm just going to give you my take on these questions. I'll get through as many as I can, as quickly as I can, and I'm just going to work my way from the bottom up. So I'm going to go to the oldest, and we'll just see how far we get. Sarah asked, to those of you that do mini sessions in public parks, is there a way to save your place? Or is it just first come, first serve, and pray that another photographer doesn't beat you to your location? Whenever you're photographing in a public space, of course, it's first come, first serve, because how would you reserve it? There's no one to reserve it with. So it's first come, first serve. I can think of this being a huge issue at Mellon Park because so many people photograph there, and I know that people have done pretty elaborate setups to sort of stake their claim on a spot. I photograph there every once in a while, but not terribly often, so I've not run into that problem. I will say this, the time that I was there recently was a Saturday, and Jordan and I were doing a family session, and two other photographers that I happen to know were there with a wedding. You better believe that I was like, beep, 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 backing up and letting them do their wedding photos, because they're a wedding, they have to get their photos and go, and we could hang out for a couple minutes and let them do their thing. So I think that if you show respect to others, you'll get that in return. So those are my thoughts on that. Okay, my friend Pam asked about a computer. She said she's looking for advice. She has a 9-year-old Mac and is long overdue in purchasing a new computer. She's been researching Mac options, and she keeps going back and forth between an iMac and a MacBook Pro. She's purchasing an iPad for the hubby, so this would be a second for me. She has a small business, does not do many photo sessions. I know I can purchase a Wacom tablet to connect to the MacBook, to either, really. I have gone to the store but still torn. Advice, please. Well, it depends on how much traveling you do or how much editing you want to do while you're traveling, but I will say this, I would always recommend a desktop machine over a laptop for editing photos every day. The monitors on laptops are getting better all the time. They're fantastic, but they're still not quite as accurate in terms of calibration as like an iMac is. So I have both. I have an old Mac 8-core Pro. Craig has a 4-core Pro. I have a new iMac, and I have two MacBook Pros, an old 15-inch and a 17-inch that Ella uses for homeschool now. And I would not edit on that 17-inch MacBook Pro. It's just not as accurate. And we had talked about this last week in terms of if you're going to travel with your laptop and the lighting conditions are always changing, then your photo editing will not be consistent. So I would personally recommend an iMac over a MacBook Pro. That is just my opinion. Connie was asking for help, and I'm sorry, Connie, I think you already did this session and I didn't get to this question. Please forgive me. She's doing a senior, and she wanted to do a few photos from a distance with the fair in the background where you can see the lights. Do I need off-camera lighting? What should my settings be? In terms of the settings, it's really hard to tell until you're there. But I would say if I were going to tackle that shot, I would probably want a slow enough shutter speed so that those background lights are illuminated properly. I don't know what that number would be. It depends on the time, the ambient lighting, so many factors, your distance. If I really wanted a nice, compelling shot, I would use off-camera flash. But if I did not have time for that, I would be okay with on-camera flash, because I wouldn't have to worry about any flash shadows in terms of like on the wall behind her, because there would be no wall. So I would use on-camera or off-camera flash, excuse me, in order to illuminate the subject and then have those lights in the distance. But I wouldn't illuminate the subject like bam, because it would be too much. I would do it at kind of a lower level. Maybe she's like a tad underexposed as compared to the lights in the background. That's my take on that. I hope that helps. Ashley posted earlier this week, she's in need of some advice and opinion. She currently has a Canon Rebel XT, 10 years old, so we know how that looks. She's loved it, served her well, technology has improved. She'd like to get a new camera and would love to hear from others. She's a hobbyist, now starting a business. She's asking Canon versus Nikon, pros, cons of both. Boy, that's a loaded question, Ashley, isn't it? That is way more than one could type in a post. Recommendations for cameras and lens recommendations. So I have a video on my website and on my Weddings by Heather YouTube channel about why I switched from Canon to Nikon. I enjoy both cameras, and so I think that they both do a really good job, so it becomes a personal preference. I would pick up both in my hands and play with them, maybe even rent them if you could, and see which one felt better to you or made more sense to you. They're both very good cameras, so it really just depends on what you're comfortable with. I have a lot of clients that shoot Canon, and I will grab their Canon cameras and use them, and I think they're fine. But I love my Nikon, so it just depends. And there are pros and cons for each. Canon and Nikon are always jockeying for position in the market, so they both have good and bad qualities. It just depends on what's important to you. So you could watch that video. I can post a link, or somebody can grab that video and post a link for her in terms of why I switched. But who cares what I think? There are a million other opinions, and really the only opinion that matters is yours and how it feels in your hands. And in terms of lens recommendations, I know you said you shoot families, newborns, kids. You have your 51.8, and that's a great lens. It depends on if you're shooting more indoors or outdoors. If you're more indoors, you probably need something that's a little wider if you can't get back far enough. If you're outdoors, then of course, everybody loves a 70 to 200 2.8. So again, personal preference in terms of how you shoot, what you're shooting. I hope that helps. Roxanne. Oh, Roxanne, did you guys see this with her shutter curtain issue? It looks like there's a black bar at the bottom of her photos. So in terms of troubleshooting, the way I approach this is the first thing I thought instantly it was a flash sync issue, but she was saying it was happening with and without the flash, which means something is wrong with the camera, period. There's really no other reason that black bar would show up. Flash sync on Nikon and Canon, around 1/200. One of them is 1/200th of a second, one is 1/250th, and I can never remember which is which. But the point is, you have to shoot a slower shutter speed than 1/200th in order to not get that black bar in terms of the flash syncing with the shutter. So it's immediately what I thought it was. I was wrong, and there were a lot of comments, but I think the bottom line for Roxanne is that camera, I was going to say Canon, that camera needs to go back to Nikon for service, period. Make it happen. And if you have a bunch of shoots coming up and you're like, what am I going to do? Oh, I need my camera. Well, your camera's not working anyway, so I would send it and I would rent. That's how I would approach it. Raina asked if anyone has ever done photos for a Marine Corps ball or any other fancy military event. I love the Marines. My brother was a Marine. Love them. Hardcore, those guys. I was just asked to photograph one, and I don't know where to start with pricing. It should be known that Raina's husband is a Marine, and Raina has over 15 years experience in business. Raina knows what's up. So I would say, Raina, that I would price that like at any event. I know you do bar and bat mitzvahs. I would price it like an event in terms of hours and coverage and delivery. Now, Jason had said something about you could volunteer your services and offer the prints at cost as like community, outreach. And I think that's great if it makes sense for your business. I am a big believer in donating your services to something that really, really matters to you. So for me, I used to donate one free wedding per year to a military couple. I also used to volunteer for the March of Dimes Walk for Babies, because who doesn't love babies? And those organizations were close to my heart. For personal reasons, everybody has something that's close to their heart. So if it's something like that, and it makes sense for your business model and where you're at in terms of margin with your finances and your time and your number of sessions, if it makes sense to donate your services, then yes. But it doesn't always. It depends. Like, it wouldn't make sense for me to donate my services to that, and I love the Marines. So I would price it like an event in terms of hours and what I want to walk away with. So come up with Raina's happy price and approach it like that. You may have already made a decision by now. That was 2 days ago. I'm not sure. You can let us know. Kathy had a Lightroom question. She transfers all of her images to an external hard drive, removes card from the reader. If it's an event, she puts it in a folder with the title, then imports into Lightroom. When I'm done with what I'm doing for the day, I close Lightroom, back up my catalog. So the next time I work on that session, I can't find them. Except with all of my other images. Example, August, whichever month it's on. Why can't I find them under the event name? I don't want to scroll through lots of images to find what I'm working on. Well, that's true. I wouldn't want to scroll either. Nobody has time for that. But I'm not sure I completely understand. I think I do. But when I open my Lightroom catalog to work on a session, and the left panels, you can see your computer or your hard drive. I expand that by clicking the little arrow or the triangle next to it, and then I can see all of my folders for the months, and then under those months, I can see all of my client names. So I expand those folders, and I click on the one that I'm working on, and then all of the photos from that session are there. You'll have to, Kathy, are you here? You'll have to let me know if that makes sense. I think you're doing it right because I'm familiar with your setup. But instead of, when you open your Lightroom catalog, it always loads your most recent import or all of your photographs, depending on how you have your preferences set up. But that doesn't matter to me because I just navigate to the folder on the left that I'm working on, and then the photos just for that event I'm viewing. Does that help, and does that work? And did you get that resolved? Please let me know. I'm not sure if you're here or not, but you can let me know. Okay, Jennifer was talking about a photographer that has hired her to photograph her family, but insists, all caps, insists on paying full price, doesn't expect favors or discounts, which is awesome, very nice, but she just doesn't feel like she can do that. Husbands work together, they're good friends. She wants to do something for her. Well, then I would offer her a discount. I would offer her a discount or some type of product or something that just makes you feel like you're adding value beyond what you would maybe give to a normal client. I saw there were a couple of comments. I didn't read them all, but I see Vincent says, just do it. I kind of like that advice, I gotta tell you. Vincent is spot on. If somebody wants to pay you, I would allow them to do so. Yes, you can pay me. And then I would do something to add more value. I would provide them with something that goes above and beyond. That would be my approach to it. I hope that helps. Okay, Amanda Bub. She says, I need to add something to my contract about locking in a package. She offers 3 different packages, and twice recently she's had brides ask if they can lower the hours to lower the price. Any suggestions on how to word this correctly in my contract? I just wouldn't allow it to happen. I would set it up so that it's not an option. What were the responses to that? Oh, again, Vincent chimed in with some, it looks like, pretty good advice that is, yeah, it's just not an option. Here's what you can do, and here are the terms and conditions. It can be pretty straightforward if you let it, but if you give people room to negotiate, then they're going to negotiate, and you can't blame them because things get tight as the wedding gets closer. So I would have that. I don't have packages, but the way I have it set up is they have to pay $1,000 non-refundable retainer, and then the remaining payments are divided into 2, 6 months prior and 1 month prior, and anything paid at any point is non-refundable, so that I'm paid in full 1 month prior to the wedding, and it has a certain number of hours, and here's what it is, period. So I would structure it so that it makes sense for you and it makes sense for your clients. I don't know the exact answer in your situation, but once a package is determined, you want to be flexible with clients, but you don't exactly want this to happen repeatedly. So I would protect myself with the structure of my packages. I've had only 1 package for about 8 years. Previous to that, so maybe like a year or 2 prior, I had 3 packages, And I would always get, you know, it was like there was a middle of the road, there was a less expensive, and obviously like almost an unreachable one. And people were picking the middle or the lowest. And I remember getting disappointed when somebody would book the lowest package. Okay, immediately that told me this is not a good option for me. If I'm disappointed that somebody is picking that, then I'm not in a good place. So I removed it. And I made it so that it didn't matter to me what someone booked. I was happy with the booking. So again, that comes back to what I said to Raina a little bit ago. Raina's happy price, Amanda's happy price. What works for you? What makes sense for your clients? And then you have to word that appropriately and enforce it. You know, I'm not talking about being a tirade. I just mean standing behind your terms and conditions. Okay, Amanda Noble said she's looking for suggestions for online contract service that doesn't cost an arm and a leg. She would love to get management software like 17 Hats, but doesn't have enough business to justify the amount. Any other suggestions other than emailing the clients, waiting contract back and forth in email, looking for something that's both easier for the client and for herself? So prior to jumping on live, I posted a link to a photography studio software review 2016 best studio software. And there are a ton on that list. And you can click the little compare checkbox and then compare them to see what they offer in pricing. Okay, before we get to that, the first thing I would do is map all of this out on paper. I would take every session that I do and I would write down every step of the process. You know, client initiates contact, client books, I send contract, client sends contract back, like every single step. I would line it out on paper so that I could look at it and then compare these studio management softwares to make sure that whatever I choose fits my needs. So you can't just willy-nilly buy studio management. You can't just willy-nilly buy anything like that. You have to first document what your needs are and then find the software that fits it. And Barb and Jody both talked about jot forms and mock forms, both of which I'm familiar with but have not used. But there are ways to sort of automate this process using less expensive options or maybe even free to get you what you need, Amanda. So I think that you should look into those and see what you can automate. Amanda Bubb says, thank you. Definitely changing the due dates for payments, and I'm going to add a lock-in on my contract. Yes, I would recommend doing that. And I will say this, the reason I did the 3 payments is because when I very first started and my prices were pretty inexpensive, I had 2 payments, and it was like, I want to say when I was maybe $1,200 when I was starting out, I had $600 due half to book me and then $600 due 1 month prior to the wedding. Well, what that meant is, because I live in Pittsburgh, predominantly my weddings were May through October, was that when I got the bookings, I had money coming in, and in the wedding season, I had money coming in, but January through March, I had no money coming in, and I did not like that. So I split it into 3 payments, both to make it easier for the client and to make it a little easier on my finances, so they weren't like, woo, woo, woo. They were more like this, so that's why I did the 3 payments. Brittany said, not sure if extra questions will be answered. A client recently approached me for family photos in the city, multiple locations, which is fine. Oh, Brittany, this is a long question. Let's work on concise. Okay, multiple locations, which is fine. Family dinner at 5:30. Was hoping to get photo Mount Washington. She asked if we could do photos before dinner. Would wait around till dinner. Dark. In my opinion, it's a lot of time. Oh gosh. Okay, long question to say. Charge per hour. That's easy. Give them an hourly rate. This is the amount for a 2-hour session, and anything beyond that is X number of dollars per hour. Done. No problem. Jody says mock forms is just for the contract, so you can use it if you're not ready to go fully studio management software option. Okay, so it's not automation, it's just the contract. But you can automate things using different apps, smaller apps. I'm trying to think of a good example. Right now, I use Acuity Scheduling to book my private mentoring sessions. So you can go on my website, and there's a link to my schedule. You can pick your date, and then you can schedule your session. It you can have payment terms set up. So for instance, if you're doing an in-person session with me, half is due at the time of booking and the other half is due prior to. So I have it set up, that 50% is due. It sends them a notice, a confirmation. It also sends them a reminder 2 days prior. But within Acuity, I don't need to for mentoring sessions, but I could put things like contracts that are automatically sent to the client, and then they could send them automatically back. So here's the deal. Either you're going to pay for something like Tave or 17 Hats, I used to have Tave, that does it sort of all for you, or you're going to have to get creative and come up with your own way and system of approaching this, and it's less expensive. Either you have time or you have money. If I have time, then I'll figure it all out on my own. If I have money, I'll pay for somebody else to do it. So I know that you would rather do this yourself, and if that's the case, then you have to take something like Acuity and hack it. I don't mean to hack it, but you have to use it in a way that makes sense for your sessions. I have a friend that does senior photography, and she uses Acuity. So she opens up her schedule, and these are the dates she's available for shoots. Her seniors schedule their sessions themselves, and she has everything automated through Acuity in terms of reminders and what they need to be doing next and what to expect, and her terms and conditions, everything automated through Acuity. Now, Acuity isn't studio management software, it's scheduling software, but she hacked it to fit her needs, and so did I. Okay, Jen says, when you first started with weddings, how did you charge? I had someone ask for a price for a wedding, but I don't have one. In fact, I've never done. When I started with weddings, my very first, I did free weddings, and then after that it was like $500, just pay me. And these were really short bookings with people I kind of knew because I was just getting started. And then I moved to $1,200. When I moved to $1,200, I did $600 to retain the date, non-refundable, and $600 a month prior. And to keep it really simple, Jen, when I started, it was you get 8 hours in the files, period. That's just how I started. That was easy for me. I did not know what I was doing yet in terms of delivering products. I didn't even know how to build an album, so that wouldn't have made sense for me at that point. And then I refined and evolved from that point. So one flat rate, 8 hours, here are your files. Done. And take that flat rate and divide it in half or in 3 and set up payments for them. So at least a decent amount is due to retain the date, because if you don't do that, then people could walk away from it, and you don't want to hold dates without. I would never, ever, never, ever, ever. I do not hold dates. Your date is not secure until I have the retainer in the contract, period, no exceptions. Okay. Amanda says she's having the same problem with money in the winter, so I'm going to change the due dates in her contract today. Yes, I did. I hated that. I wasn't getting any money in February, but listen to this. The minute I changed that, I started to get, remember, June's like a busy month for weddings, right? I started to get big paydays in January because that's 6 months prior. So if I had 4 June weddings, 4 July weddings, which I often did, then I was getting these payments in January, February, March, and it was fantastic. Ashley says, how do you have clients pay you? Okay, so the #1 rule for payments is you make it easy for people to give you money. Therefore, if they say to you, can I pay you? I don't care what they say next. The answer is yes. Yes, you can. So that could be cash, check, PayPal, credit card, online, whatever you want to do, you can pay me that way. And you can do all of these things whether you're a business or not. So there really aren't any excuses. Obviously, people can pay you cash. They can write out a check to you personally if you don't have a business, or to your business if you do. You can get a PayPal account and they can pay you with PayPal using a credit card. They don't have to have an account, so they can just use their credit card or their PayPal account. So any way they can pay you, the answer is yes, you can pay me. You're welcome, Jen. Thank you. Brian says, I know the question was about affordable, but we use Sprout Studio for workflow, automation, contracts, gallery sales, invoicing, questionnaires, contact lead forms, album pricing, all in one. They're also working on integrating a robust bookkeeping system. Brian, can we ask what the pricing is on Sprout Studio? I saw that in the list and I didn't have a chance to click through and look at it. but there is a price for convenience, and to me it's usually worth it, because convenience means efficiency, and efficiency also means that I'm not going to miss things, because if you have disparate systems all over the place, then the chances are greater that you could make a mistake or miss something, or there can be an open loop, and I hate open loops. So I do enjoy convenience. Ashley said, I didn't know people didn't have to have an account for PayPal. Yes. So if you get a link for PayPal to pay for something, you have two options. You can say, pay with my PayPal account, or just pay with a credit card. And I don't know why a lot of people don't know that, but it's there plain as day. You can pay with a credit card through PayPal, but you do not have to have a PayPal account, nor do you have to create one. So people can pay you. Ella can accept payments through PayPal for her cupcakes. And in fact, she has a custom URL. It's paypal.me/EllaJL. And people can go to that link, and her picture's there and it's cute, and you can click it and pay her for anything. So you can have a custom URL like that. You can have, I mean, you can take it as simple or as complex as you want. I have a button on my website that goes through my business PayPal account so people can pay me any amount. I would just keep in mind, the number one rule is make it easy for people to give you money. If you make it difficult, they're not going to want to pay you. Brian says they pay annually. This is for Sprout Studio, so it breaks down to something like $45 per month, saves them a ton of time. Yeah, I am certain that it's worth it. Do you have any final thoughts or questions before I head back to my work? I am working today on the Flourish Academy, and this is all behind the scenes tech stuff, which I love until I don't love it. And then my eyes want to bug out of my head because it's pretty intense. And I may or may not be in slightly over my head. But you know what's funny? I really believe that I can figure anything out. There are tutorials on everything. I might not know how to do it right now, but I can learn it. I believe that I can do it, so therefore I will. All right, have a great day, an awesome weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.